I think it's the American Primate. It's his organization. And all three of us were invited out. I know Will couldn't schedule it in, couldn't make it out there, but he'll definitely be missed. And what do you think, Woody? Should we take our podcast equipment? Should we go out there and interview people when we're...
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea. I think we should take some stuff out there and we might get some of the best interviews out there. I mean, everybody's interested in the same topic. Let's record some stuff, man. Let's get some new stuff added to the show. I think it'd be a good idea.
Think people will be offended if I show up with some flute awards to hand out?
You got to do it.
I think they'd be offended if you don't, brother.
Probably.
We'll call up to the people. They won the annual Flute Player Award for the year from Sasquatch Chronicles.
A few notables who should have those awards that may be there.
Oh, they'll be all over it. You know they'll be playing their flutes. No pun intended.
We're going to be run out of town when we get to the beach. Get those guys, Sasquatch Chronicle guys, out of there.
Who invited these jokers?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a good plan, man. So anybody listening to the show, go ahead and you guys are going to that beach thing that we're going to have some stories ready. We'd like to interview and get some stories. We'll put it on the show.
Yeah. If you want to meet a couple schmucks, me and Woody will be there. Come on down. Tonight on the show we have the Brown family. I know we're going to bring Sarah and hopefully John on here shortly. And they've actually had a lot of stuff going on up at their property here in Washington for a long time. I know Sarah's been talking back and forth with myself. She's been talking back and forth with Will. I think Will said that for 2 years they've had stuff going on. Isn't that what she said, Will? She lost 2 years?
Yeah, for the past 2 years.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to talking with them. And I know we got some audio clips that we're going to play tonight, but I want to welcome Sarah to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, good. How are you?
Good.
Well, you guys, I guess we should tell listeners that you, among Sasquatch encounters throughout the history of the subject, what you have going at your location is actually a rarity. You know, where it's been going on for at least 2 years, right?
Yes.
Okay. So those situations don't happen very often. So since it's been so long, what I'd like to do is kind of start out at the beginning before anything happened there, and sort of tell us a little bit about you and John, and then how things started, how you started noticing anything out of the ordinary, or when you first knew it might be a Sasquatch or more there.
John's dad grew up on this property. There were 11 kids in that family, and John's grandfather used to have a smokehouse where their house that John grew up in after moving from Nia Bay. He used to have a smokehouse that sat there, and his grandfather used to tell stories about how a Sasquatch would go into his smokehouse and steal his fish. And then the next day he would find raw fish outside of his smokehouse. There's always been a history on this property. There's always been a history with the family. When John and I started dating about 6 years ago, he had told me about his interest in Sasquatch, and I thought he was funny. He told me he wanted to go on a BFRO expedition or something. I actually told my mom, and she thought he was funny too for thinking that. As we got more and more serious, he was telling me stories, and I became more curious. Then we really started reading all the best books we could find, watching the good documentaries, and I realized that there was something major to it, you know, all the evidence that you just don't hear about. John and his brother went to the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest. Their first night there, they heard one. It was just a massive, massive roar. And John came home, told me about it, and we started researching areas, like well-known areas, and we found out Gray's Harbor is just a hot spot, you know. They really like this area, and it's just, I think there's just so much forest here, so much land. We realized, man, there's probably more to your grandfather's stories than just stories, you know. And so we started talking to a few neighbors that have been around for a long time. They shared their stories, their encounters. We just started researching out of our backyard and found that they were in our backyard. We started figuring more out, learning what not to do. Long story short, we had gotten audio set up at September 6th of last year. Now patterns are starting to form.
What were the first signs that tipped you off that Sasquatches were there in that area?
We had found some odd stick structures or stick art, whatever you want to call them, and that kind of struck interest in us, and they were really close to our house. And so John, Ben, and I, John's brother, went outside, and I recorded just this massive, massive roar, followed by another massive roar, and then it sounded like a Sasquatch just yelling at something. What it was saying, I don't know who it was yelling at. I recorded that from my cell phone, and so we realized that they were right there, and that was daylight too.
You've actually seen the creatures, is that right?
I've seen them 3 times.
Okay.
John has seen them 5 or 6, I believe. The first time either of us saw one was that same month. It was 2 weeks later, and him and I, we'd walk into the tree line and we would hang leftovers from a tree, thinking that they were taking them, but of course they weren't, But we didn't know at the time, and we would hang food from a tree. And a lot of times when we would walk in there, we were told it's good to always alert them. And so we would either click rocks or we'd whistle. And after a few times, it didn't take long. As soon as we walk in that tree line and we would either whistle or clack rocks together, we would hear a whistle. And then we would hear almost like a roll call around the woods. Like you'd hear a whistle and then crack and then a wood knock and then, another rock clack and a thump and just kind of like, hey, there's a person here. Got it.
Right.
And then, and then one time, broad daylight, we were walking in there. I was about 30 feet ahead of John with a food plate, and he stops and he goes, we need to turn around and go right now. And I turn and look at him. He's looking over his left shoulder, and I could tell what he was seeing. I knew by the look on his face. And he would glance for a couple seconds, and then look down at the ground, glance, look down. And he kept saying, we need to go. And so both of us are stressed out. I'm kind of pacing with this food plate. I didn't look over. Don't ask why. It's just one of those things that I didn't do. He eventually talks me out of exiting the woods and going back home. And that's when he saw a 9-foot one, just a massive one. For the longest time, he talked about how big its butt was. Just this massive muscular butt. But that one was around 9 feet tall, 60 feet away.
When was the first time you saw one of them?
The first time I saw one was September 6th of last year. We had a thermal eye camera, one of those old school ones. They don't record or anything. They're just for viewing purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And John and I were standing outside by where the audio tent is, and we hear knock, knock, knock really close to us, and it freaked us out. So we retreated to the porch, and then John walked around the corner with his flashlight, another stupid thing that we did at the time, and he shines it, and he runs around the corner back, and he said back to me, and he goes, eye shine. And so he just saw these bright white eyes with the reflection of his flashlight. So I walked around the corner with the thermal eye, and there it was, roughly, I think it was 120 feet away. I have the exact measurement. It was just past the barbed wire fence, and it was just slightly swaying back and forth while it was moving to the right. And it was behind really tall blackberry bush. I'll have to show you. I have a picture of it, actually. It was swaying and swaying, and then it stopped. And I just stared at it. I was completely in awe. I was more freaked out than I'd ever been. I could just feel my eyes were dilated, But I stared at it for, it seemed like a half hour, but in reality it was probably 2 or 3 minutes. I remember Derek Randalls had said, this is an old camera. If you guys ever see one, take a picture with your cell phone as a viewfinder. He was totally kidding. But after a while, after calming down as much as you can when you're staring at a 7'6" Sasquatch or a 6'7" Sasquatch, John goes,
that's kind of a tough situation.
Oh yeah, it is. And John goes, take a picture with it. Take a picture with your cell phone. So I did. And David Ellis came over and we redid it. We found where it was standing. It was all compressed. We found a pot that we believe the creature was banging on. The whole thing is on audio too, which is always cool. For the correlation. Then you hear our ridiculous reactions and everything. So that was the first time.
Sarah, is that the famous thermal picture that you guys have?
No, that was from October 31st.
Oh, okay.
That was 2 months later. That was with the FLIR.
I gotcha.
The video.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Sorry, Will, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No problem. No problem. So what happened next after that situation?
After that, we were lent a FLIR BTS from Wally Hersom. Started using it, trying to figure it out, and those things are so hard to, not hard to work necessarily, but just to understand what you're looking at.
Sure.
And especially when everything is about the same temperature. And so I started using it, and about a week later, I quickly showed my brother-in-law how to use it. I said, look, just real quick run through, because neither of us really like to be told what to do by me, if you know what I mean. That's how you guys are. And so I didn't even ask John. I thought, he'll learn how to do it on his own. And I said, Ben, just real quick, run through. This is how you record. This is how you change, contrast, whatever. 2 nights later, they're sitting outside, and half of the cows had been taken earlier that day. And the remaining ones were so loud and obnoxious just all day. I didn't even turn on audio because all you could hear were cows. And the guys were about to come in, and they hear, again, tap, tap, tap on a tree. John picks up the FLIR and looks through it. And when he came inside, he said to me, he goes, I think I just filmed a Bigfoot, but I'm not sure. And I go, well, what makes you say that? And he goes, well, it just looks like a head to me. I didn't see ears. It just looked like a head, and it was standing completely still like a Sasquatch would. And he goes, but, I was whistling at it and, trying to get it to do something, and it didn't. It just stood there. And I go, well, was it a cow that was, laying down? And he goes, it didn't look like it, but I'm not sure. Well, John is so low-key that he didn't press for it anymore. A week later, I was like, hey, I'm going to check out what he filmed. Pop in that SD card. First thing I see is the still image that John had taken because he couldn't figure out how to push record. And I saw it, and I go, oh, my gosh, that's a Sasquatch standing there. I call Ben in the room, and I go, look at this. And he goes, oh, my goodness, it's John. And then we pulled the video, and I was just completely in awe. There's science behind that video. This one man wrote a couple months ago, and he said, I spilled something on the screen of my phone, and I quickly went to clean it off. And when I pressed on the screen, it kind of distorted whatever it does, with the screen. And he goes, I could see eye sockets, a collarbone, the sagittal crest. I could see all of that. And he's like, this is amazing to me. And so then we had Phil Poling come out and do his breakdown. And he said, when he left, he goes, I think he saw a Sasquatch. And I go, I know that was a Sasquatch. And he, kind of chuckled. He did such an awesome job on that. I don't know if you've seen that, but I
was shocked when I saw it. And I know Woody's seen it. I know Will's seen it. I could tell it was out of focus, but that was no cow.
Oh, no, there's no way. You know what? I gotta lend some credit to the guys, too. I don't know if you know Kirk Brandenburg. He shot some New Mexico footage, and with an old school FLIR. He was on a Finding Bigfoot episode or something, but he's a really close friend of ours. And he said to me, he said, you know what? I've used a FLIR BTS before, and this should not look like this. There shouldn't be that outer ring, and it shouldn't be this out of focus. So he called FLIR, and they said, no, it's out of warranty. And he said, well, hey, I know that Wally Hersom has been a loyal customer of yours for quite a while. This is his camera. And so they said, okay, we'll check it out. And they called us back and said, yeah, there is something wrong with whatever it was. And they sent us a letter and everything. And they said they fixed it, but it still wasn't up to par when we had gotten it back. So I think that if it wasn't defective, I think that it would have turned out a lot better than that. It wasn't solely due to the poor focus, you know.
Sure. After the footage was taken, what went on then?
Lots of audio. Tons and tons of audio. I would say that it's safe to say they are within close proximity. I know that, Will, you and I had talked about how they move around, you know, right. But still remain in their, you know, in their territory kind of thing. But I would say they remain within recording capabilities, maybe 85% of the time. We get a lot of daylight activity too, which I know is not common. I don't know why, but that clip that I sent you today where I'm so confused about that clip and no one ever tells me of an animal. They're just like, I don't know what that is. It sounds like a toddler. We hear that one a lot during the day. A lot.
Hey, sir. I don't mean to interrupt, but it might help for some of the other listeners out there to kind of, and I know exactly where you're at. I worked out there for years, so I know just about where you live. But if you could kind of explain maybe the landscape of where you live, and that might help kind of explain maybe why you're getting some daytime activity.
Oh, okay. So the land is, our house sits within a fence that's about 2.5 acres. It's surrounded by a cow pasture that's leased out to a man about 6 months out of the year just for grazing. On the outer perimeter of the pasture, there's a creek, there's a river, there's not a huge wooded area. There's enough.
I do remember last time I was out there in your area, it seemed to be a lot of, and I don't know exactly where you live, but I know there's some government land with power line runs that run through there. I also know that Weyerhaeuser owns some property out in your close to your area. So there is heavily forested areas. There's water. There's a lot. Oh, yeah,
and there's the Olympic National Forest is right, you know, close. But in our immediate yard, there's not. I should send you guys a Google map of it so you could get a better idea. Not to share or anything, but, you know, just for you to see. But it's, as some people would call, it's very squatchy. You guys all have to come out here, too.
Yeah, have us out.
Anytime you guys want to come out. Anytime you want to come out. You don't live far.
People from where Sarah's from, it's a very beautiful area. There is heavily forested areas. There's also clear-cut areas. Weyerhaeuser owns a bunch of the land. There's plenty of water. You're not too far from the Naso River. I'm not sure what the other
it's
parts
not heavily
of the water.
populated, that part of the state.
No, it is not, you know, and it's gorgeous. So I just kind of wanted to kind of paint a picture for people out there who are listening, and I think that's important because it explains why you're getting more daytime activity than other areas. I don't know, might be a dumb idea, but I just kind of wanted to point that out.
No, I agree. Sometimes, you know, when you know everything about something, you forget,
right?
You know, to explain the details.
That's kind of what I was thinking, you know, like I said, I worked out there for almost 4 years in that area, and it's a gorgeous area, so I understand why you're having daytime activity.
Yeah, it was interesting. You mentioned the eye shine. We were doing some research out south of Raymond one year. A friend's lab went crazy one night, and we saw the same thing. Not far from the camp, there was one right up near the camp watching us. But anyway, so
was it white? Were the eyes white?
Yeah, I've seen white and amber. It really depends on the type of light you shine at them.
Oh, really? Okay. Because I feel like a common one is red.
No, actually it's not that common. People think it is. And I talked with the old timers years ago. In fact, John Green told me one time we were discussing eye shine, and he says, it's a common misconception. He says, out of the thousands of reports I have in my files, out of all the people who reported eye shine, he says, I think I have 7 reports, and the rest are all amber or white. And different
That's interesting.
Have different colors. So with all this activity now, how long was it before you had your second sighting there?
It was 2.5 weeks. I went outside to turn on audio. It was just after dark. John and Ben were sitting in the gazebo like they do every single night. And I went outside and I could hear some sticks and stuff breaking about, I would say, 500 feet. Mm-hmm. There's 117 feet between where our property ends and then the ridge. And it's lightly wooded. And then there's this opening, this clear opening, and then there's the wooded area where we hear them a lot. I could hear it coming from that direction. So I looked through this is when we still have the thermal eye, not the FLIR yet, no recording capabilities. I looked through it, and I could see one over there. And I say he because I don't think that we've ever seen a female. We've heard the female, but I don't think we've ever seen the female. No, we've never seen breasts or anything, But so I look over and I see him kind of walking. I could see it from the side view, see him kind of walking towards the ridge. And me, totally foolish, I yell out, I go, "You guys, there's one right there." And so they get up and walk over, and Ben grabs the thermal eye, and he goes, "Oh, I see something white walking over there." And by then I think that was the creature's head going down. I'm sure that they were very well aware that the guys were sitting there, but it didn't seem like it was observing them or even really cared, if that makes sense. Sometimes we'll hear them and they're really, really close. It's just kind of like they're doing their own thing.
Right.
Did I send you that clip of, I think it was titled, Big Branch Break at John and Ben? John and Ben are in the gazebo, and it's like a 2-minute clip, and you can just hear all these huge branches breaking. And I asked John, I go, "Did you feel threatened?" And he goes, "Well, no, because where we had found all these sticks that were broken, there wasn't even a view of the guys." I don't know. I think that a lot of people always say, well, they were doing this to intimidate you. They were trying to show dominance and stuff, but I bet a lot of it's just out of boredom.
Yeah, that does happen occasionally, especially in the more long-term situations like yours. If it's more of a chance encounter, then it's a display of some kind. But back in 89, 90, I mentioned this on the show before, when we were investigating the Yakult incidents, that was a 9-month situation very similar to what you have there. And oftentimes, they would come in and check out the farm. And a lot of times I think they were just bored. Everybody that saw one, in fact, 2 young girls, teenagers, were chased by one up to the house one evening. And they said, they were banging pots and pans trying to scare it away. And finally they said just kind of looked bored and just walked off. Wow.
I would be terrified if I was chased by one.
Those were common events at that time. Yeah, they were terrified.
Wow. Yeah, when we first started all this and we were doing all the stupid stuff like shining flashlights in their faces and stuff, John and Ben had gone to another area close to our house where we hear them a lot. And it was during the day, and John came home and said, he goes, "I feel really uncomfortable with what we just did." And I go, "Well, what'd you do?" And he goes, "I just felt like we were getting too close to stick structures, and I just felt like we were being watched and everything." Well, that night he goes outside, and whack, just from different directions of the yard, just beating on the trees. And he peeks his head in the door, and he goes, "You've got to come out here. This is nuts." and they were just beating the heck out of those trees, telling him, you know, hey, back off. You know, we don't come that close to your stuff. We don't get up in your stuff. So he felt very threatened then, you know, so I know that there are some times where that is the case.
That was a question I was going to ask you. Have they approached the house yet?
I don't know if they ever crossed that fence. I'm not sure. I can't say. I think their favorite part is that ridge where the thermal one was filmed.
It almost sounds like they're kind of getting comfortable with you at this point, in a certain sense.
It's what it sounds like.
Right? I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting out of it. It's like, I almost wonder if they actually know that you're watching and they really don't care kind of at this point. I mean, it's starting to get more comfortable throughout time, is kind of what I'm saying.
I agree. I feel like I know absolutely nothing about them still, but I do think that there is that smidge of change. I think that they're very aware. We're aware of them, you know. They don't, and even though they don't come walking out during the day, I know that they know that we're there. When we brought home Sydney, our 6-month-old, from the hospital, she was a couple weeks old, and we went into the tree line because we just hadn't gone in there forever. I had her in a Moby wrap in the front of me, which is kind of like a baby backpack. And we just went into the very front of the tree line, broad daylight, and we were in there for about 10 minutes. We found some footprints. I think you were invited over, Wes, to cast some of those. But as soon as we exited the tree line...
I wasn't invited anywhere.
Oh, you weren't?
No.
That's what he's talking. He never gets invited.
Yeah.
Oh.
I was not invited. Anyways, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But as soon as we exited the tree line,
that's usually why he interrupts everyone.
He gets all the attention. Yeah, whatever.
He gets all the what?
Anyways, he gets all the attention.
Well, Woody, you should come over later.
Yeah, see, there we go. Now we're talking.
Yeah. But as soon as we exited the tree line, we hear this whoop, like just this gentle whoop. It was so funny, and I turned around and smiled. You know, we were just like, what? It was cool. So, you know, it's those little things like that every once in a while where it's just like, man, we could pretty much start calling each other by first names now, you know, and then the next day they do something and I'm just like, okay, I don't know anything about you guys, you know?
No, and you know what, that's important, Sarah, that you say that, because, and it's funny that you said that, because I was just kind of thinking the same thing. You know, we've had several people on the show. They've talked about, we've heard several encounters. I've had my own personal encounter. Will has, Wes has as well, and as you. And it's funny how we talk to so many different people and we get so many different stories, and that tells me that a lot of these things have several different personalities along with kind of like ourselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I talk to people that, oh God, they want to kill us, and then I talk to other people and then it's like, we want to sit down and have dinner together. And then, you know, I talk to other people and they're kind of like, well, I don't really know where we kind of stand with them. And it's funny because, you know, talking with you, it's kind of like, you know, you kind of tell your own different personality about how you feel, how these creatures react, you know, so that's kind of cool. Anyway.
Yeah. And yeah, you know, I don't think anyone can really say what, oh, they don't do that or they do that. Because I'll hear some people say, well, I've heard that they like this or that they do this. And the ones here don't. They will not take my food. And a lot of people say, oh, just keep doing it, be persistent. And it's to the point now where it pisses me off, you know. And I was left a decapitated coyote pelt that its tail was wrapped around a tree hanging there because we were having problems with them coming into the yard. And so completely gross, and it grossed me out, but I was just like, okay, I guess I'll say thank you for this weird gift. And I put some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in a Ziploc bag, and I hung them on the barbed wire fence that the coyote pelt was by. And that they sat there, and it sat there, and they were leaving little things by the bag of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to let me know that they were seeing them, but they weren't taking them. And I was just like, you guys are ridiculous. Like, they even hung ivy 10 feet up, and it went all the way down to the ground. And I was just like, they have to have a good sense of humor.
I can give you an example of that, kind of messing with what they do. Again, the alcohol thing, there were so many things that happened during that 9 months. What was happening there was the family was new to farming, and they were from Wisconsin. They really didn't know much about farming in Washington, so they had a horse and I think about 10 or 12 acres, and they raised a garden and didn't really know, they were just trying out lots of new things to them. And they had a lot of radishes, and they didn't like the radishes. So they would pull, a big handful of radishes and put them out for the horse. Well, the horse wouldn't eat them. The radishes would come up missing every morning. And it was right where the first sighting was, by the family, was where the radishes, in that general area. So we knew they were taking the radishes. And I talked to a guy at the time who was the head of the Oregon Regional Primate Center, Henner Fahrenbach, who was kind of worthless when it comes to anything with Sasquatch. So we talked on the phone, and I said, well, this is what's going on in my anthropology training. They said, if you want to observe or learn anything about primates, you have to observe them without interfering in what they're doing. Otherwise, it alters what they do if you have
100%.
So we discussed this, and he says, well, I think we should I can bring out this and that. And I said, well, my training was you don't interfere. And he says, well, I'm a PhD, I know more than you, blah, blah, blah. So we kind of argued, and as it came out, he says, well, look, okay, we can talk about it when I come out. So the guy violated our agreement when he was coming out, and he brought all this junk. He had a little hibachi, he was cooking meat, he put turnips out there, a box of donuts, all this stuff. And what had happened was it pissed the group of Sasquatches off. They took the box of donuts, they took a big bite out of one of the turnips, threw it down, and they went to the neighboring farm and completely tore their garden up. And it scared the people so bad, they abandoned their property.
Oh, my goodness.
So, there's some lessons learned about primates and what to do and what not to do. And you made a good point about the different personalities. Something I've learned over the years with all the different, probably thousands of stories, I've heard people tell me. Like with people. Now, it's not just the different personalities, different psychologies, even right down to how well the creature's eaten that day, how its behavior might be, moods and things like that. So you're going to get the whole range, just like with people, and other primates do the same things. There's, everyone has a different personality and things they do and behaviors.
That is the one thing that I've gone through everything with what I think they are. And what someone wants to think they are, that's fine. Let them have their own thought. I don't like it when people pick on, all these people for what they believe, because no one really knows what they are. But personally, I've gone through all these different thoughts, and they'll do something, and I'm like, okay, they're just ape. Oh, okay, they're this, they're that, And finally, about a month ago, I was just like, you know what? I think that we as people tend to overcomplicate things that are unknown. And, like a lot of people that just see one take off and run so fast, they're like, it just cloaked. When in reality, it's just like, no, you just don't realize how fast that thing took off.
Right. And people put, there's a term called anthropomorphism, and that's when people apply human traits and characteristics on non-human species.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to explain.
Exactly.
That big word you just said. Yep.
Right.
I agree. And I think when you start thinking the right way, like just a simple way, it kind of starts to make sense. And about maybe a month or two ago, I was like, you know what? I think that they are, I don't think that they're a type of person necessarily. maybe more intelligent than an ape. I don't know. And this is just my thought. But the one thing that makes me go, man, I don't think that they could just be a great ape is for that reason, for their personalities and things like that. Because you can look at a dog. Yeah, you can look at a dog and you can go, okay, even though pit bulls, a lot of them, you know, are aggressive. There's a few that are nice. You still know what a pit bull's going to do. You still know what a cat's going to do. You know what it's going to, you know that it's going to go sit on the couch all day when you're gone. You know that it's going to go poop in the litter box, and you know what animals are going to do. I cannot predict these things for the life of me.
There's a lot of gaps in the hominid fossil record, and I mean some really big gaps, because a lot of areas like in forests and jungles, fossilization doesn't take place in those kinds of areas. For instance, you know, if chimps would have died out 500 years ago, we'd have stories like the Sasquatch, you know, these big hairy creatures that were man-like existed, and people would say, oh, that's all myth. Well, you know, we don't know all the things that did exist and still exist. And really what these are, they're kind of probably kind of a leftover.
You think so?
I think so. I think they're a continuation of something that we just don't know about yet.
Yeah.
Actually, that's right.
I know so many people make it really complicated, and one day my mom, who's just absolutely amazing, and she's kind of living vicariously through our stories right now because she's just completely fascinated. And I was trying to tell her, Mom, I think that Sasquatch is this because it does this or does this. And she goes, well, what's to stop God from just making a Bigfoot? And I was like, yeah, you're right. Why do I have to put all of these
That's right.
things on it, you know? So
yeah, people do things instead of just making observations. And you know, you can do comparative things to other primate species, and there's some things you can pick that are similar from lots of different primate species that these guys do. So, but they're their own creatures, so they're going to be unique.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
one more thing I want to touch on is when you said a couple minutes ago, you said how when that the guy came out and he completely interfered, and you had said, you know, these creatures, you cannot interfere with them, or they, you know, they do things like tear up farms. We have learned that so much in the past couple months. First, Stacy Brown came out, and we were out there every night squawking, and we could hear them, and it just could not get thermal, you know, get them in view of thermal, nothing. And the last night Stacy was here, we were just all exhausted, sitting in the gazebo. I had gone into the house, and right from the ridge, clack, clack, clack. And the next day I was like, they want to come to us. We don't need to go out there. It just makes them mad. It makes them go away for a while. And then, you know, this past month we've been so beyond busy with fireworks and everything that it has been crazy. And last June and July were the quietest months of the year. This July has been absolutely nuts because we have not gone into that tree line one time. And
things I learned a long time ago was one thing is you don't really want to go out in their area at night, because usually
we try not to.
Socializing and doing what they're doing. It's usually okay during the day because they're up in their sleeping areas. But again, back to the aqua thing, we had a guy. This guy claimed he was well, let me back up a little bit. It's kind of a funny short story, but some of my friends we'd go up there just about every night, and we would stay in the family's yard, because usually they'd come up to the fence line and they wouldn't go in the yard unless nobody was there, and sometimes, you know, then they'd come in the yard. But I saw the car headlights coming from north of us from the town, and I thought it was one of our other friends coming, and it wasn't. The little blue Porsche pulls up, and a man and a woman get out, and this is right at dusk. And the guy, he starts to head to the tree line across this barbed wire fence. I said, I wouldn't go up there if I were you. And he says, well, I'm a biologist from Seattle. I know what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. So they threw their backpacks over the fence and climbed over, and up the hill they went. I looked at my friends, and I said, they'll be back. About 20 minutes later, it was pretty dark, and I see these flashlights just bobbing furiously coming down through the timber. And they throw their packs over the fence and just about kill themselves trying to climb over this barbed wire fence. And the guy hops in the car and fires it up, and the woman's halfway hanging out as he's tearing out of the side of the road, getting out of there.
My goodness.
The Sasquatches were coming down off the top of the hill the same direction every night. We hear them scream up there, and then that would usually signal them coming down into the valley. And they happened to encounter them as they were coming down, and it wasn't a pleasant encounter. But
wow.
My friend started laughing. He says, "You called that one right on the money." I said, I can watch what they're doing, and know when to stay out of the way.
You have two groups on the property, correct? Or around the property?
Well, we have one group that lives on the land, but we know of another group that lives fairly close, but we get a group of I think that they're juvenile males, looking for their own territory. They come through every once in a while, and they don't go behind our house where this group lives, but they go to the perimeter, and they're scary. I wouldn't want to encounter them.
They're probably looking for females.
The juvenile group that is around the property that never actually crosses over the boundary of where the group that you're familiar with, the juvenile group that is around the property, when you say they're kind of scary, what do you mean by that? I mean, can you kind of go into...
I shouldn't say that because I don't want people to think that they're monsters, but they're just kind of cocky. I always say that they're hood, but we'll hear them during the day, and it's every couple months. I don't know how often they're around or how close they wander regularly, but we'll hear them during the day, and I'm just like, man, there's people that can hear you right now, and they'll just be hooting and hollering across the street. I have one audio clip of where I was in the front and I was whistling across the street because we hear them over there a lot. I was getting whistled back, and the whistle was getting closer. And this was after dark, closer and closer. And then I whistle, and directly across the street, it couldn't have been 2 feet past that tree line, I got the most crazy vocal. And I thought the Sasquatch was going to step right out. It was just right there. But I believe that was one of them. I should send you guys that audio clip. It kind of sounded like a weird elephant type. Oh, man, it's a really odd sound. But
interesting to hear that.
Yeah, it's a good one. I'll send it to you as soon as we get off the phone. But also that turf wars clip that I sent you, which is one of my favorites, is that group. The ones that are banging on the trees and going, oh, and that's that group right on the perimeter of the property.
It's a good time to play that one, Wes. Did you want to let the listeners hear that one?
Sarah, I want to get through some of your audio clips, but can you kind of tell us what was going on there?
Oh man, you tell me. They, the 2 weeks before that clip, John and I were like, okay, because we kind of base what they possibly eat on a bear. And that time of year, there's no berries. Salmon's not, in the river yet. And, there doesn't seem to be as much deer, elk, whatever. I'm so not an outdoorsy person, so bear with me. But it doesn't seem like there's, much food around at that time. And we were like, man, they're just like the craziest behavior. And during the day, like just almost like they were eating mushrooms or something, or, getting into someone's beer or something. I don't know. And then
so you're saying Sasquatch is tripping at this point, is what you're saying?
Yeah. Totally, that's what I'm saying. I have no
I'm okay with that.
clue. And that's why I said, do you think they have a mating season? Because they were acting so weird and loud, and we didn't hear a peep from the female. Not even on audio, not a peep. Nothing. Then when I heard that clip, I was just like, man, do they have a mating season and they were coming to seek out that female? What's going on here,
I know we're running short on time, but I wanted to play a couple more of your sounds. This one's called the Big Guy Gibberish and Female Response. And it looks like it's a 5X.
That is, we call him Big Guy because of his voice. I think that's an alpha male. And we have him talking to the female on many occasions. And I love that clip because all she does is goes, mm-hmm. And then we have other clips of her doing the same thing with the one that we call the yip yeller. He always yells yip at us. But she's either going, mm-hmm, or she sounds like she's nagging. I don't know. We don't hear much from her, but when we do, she's just either agreeing or nagging. Could you hear her at the end?
I mean, it didn't sound like a known animal, but it's kind of hard to pick up. How far away do you think they were at the time when they were doing that?
I think that they were either, do you hear that?
Yeah, I heard that one too. Yeah.
Oh. They do really bad impressions of the cows. Like the cows are down there. I don't know if you can hear the cows because it's kind of far away, but the cows are mooing, and then you get that, and it's just cows don't have lungs like that. They're really bad at some impressions, but they're geniuses with others.
Yeah, they are imitators, definitely.
Oh, for sure. And one time David Ellis and I heard we heard a crow, and then a couple minutes later we heard caw, caw, and we were like, caw? That's all you've got? Like, it was just such an awful impersonation. But
I got the Yip Yeller vocals loaded up.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and play that one real quick. Wow, that's creepy.
Yeah, he's the vocal one for sure. We have a clip that's like 7 minutes, and we're all talking, and from really far away you can hear, yip, yip, and it just gets closer and closer, and we're completely oblivious to it the entire time. And it's to the point where he's louder than us.
That last clip that you played, didn't that sound like something with a samurai shatter type thing?
That's what I was thinking, too.
It actually reminded me of one of those sounds going on in the Blue Mountains, and the guy goes out and he fires off a couple shots, and after the third shot, you hear this, you hear him like scream something, and you can't quite make out what he's screaming.
Well, you know what I was just thinking is how many people have we heard say that it sounds like someone's having a conversation, but you can't make out the words?
Right.
That's kind of what it made me think of.
To us, it sounds like deaf Indians.
Yeah, and a lot of people have said that. I've heard a lot of people say that. Like a deaf person or deaf Indians or...
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I think we should do? I think we should take that noise and play it backwards and see what it says.
This isn't a Led Zeppelin.
Oh, Woody, such a submissive thing to say.
Oh, we're going.
I'm kidding.
Sir?
I'm kidding.
Yeah. Sir, do you see why it never gets invited anywhere? Do you see why no one wants him around?
Woody has the guest beating him up now.
Play it backwards.
I'm kidding.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to sit here and look pretty the rest of the show. Okay, guys? And gals.
Yeah, that guy's our most vocal. And I think that he reminds me of like a 20-something that has a crush on his high school teacher.
Now I got 2 last clips to play. I got the female, and I got the big guy gibberish. Should I play the big guy gibberish first, do you think, Sarah?
Yeah, it's that same growly voice.
Okay, I'll play that real quick. And I'm curious, sir, before I play the brown female one, on the what you guys call the big guy, have you heard, the best way to describe it is like a lion's roar. Have you heard him do that?
Oh, yeah. That was the first recording I got. Yes. Massive, massive lungs. Because when he yells, it's that loud. But you know what's funny? Is I think that if you guys listen to that War Cries one that I sent, his howl, which we catch on audio all the time, I probably have 30 clips of it, is his howl is very high. When Phil Poling was here, he's like, is that a female howling? But I think that it's alpha male. Yeah, that voice is nuts, huh?
Yeah, it is. It is. I was curious about the lion's roar. If you've, because recordings never really do justice when you're right there in the moment hearing it. I'm sure, because Woody and I have heard the lion's roar. I know Will's heard different vocals, and when you hear it, you're sitting there listening to it. You're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm sure if we would have caught it on recording, you probably couldn't have heard anything, but except for us squealing like little girls after we heard it.
Yeah.
But when you hear it, you're just like, oh my God, I can't, like, what in the world is that? It sounds like a lion up there just going off.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just kind of curious if you've heard that before or not. So I'm glad that you have. A lot of people report that.
Yeah, the very first recording we got was that. The very last part of that, it sounds like he's singing. You'll have to listen to it again. It's pretty funny.
Strange. Yeah, I'll have to go back and listen to that. I know we're running short on time. The last one I'll play is the brown female.
Yeah, those ones creep me out. John actually heard that. And he came inside and he goes, it sounds like there's kids singing or something in the tree line. It's creeping me out. Sounds like there's kids down there. And it was pretty late. I had posted that and sent it to a few people saying, have you guys ever heard this, you know? Because it was a very high activity time, very high activity. And it was a time where we were picking her up, you know, a lot more than usual as well. And someone wrote me back and said that their girlfriend saw a female Sasquatch down in a canyon, and she was walking along the, you know, kind of like a ridge type thing in a canyon, you know, and it looked like she was singing, and she sounded just like that. So, I don't know. It's creepy. And I think that the reason it's more creepy sounding is that the echo, you know, because she was down in the valley.
Yeah, that is strange.
I don't know.
That's very
Those
strange.
ones weird me out.
Have you heard them mimic you or John yet?
I don't know. Man. There's some times where I feel like I'll hear, because I come out here a lot by myself on the ridge, and I feel like I'll hear someone back at the house call my name, and I'll go back, you know, I'll go towards the house, and I'll go, did you say something? And no one did.
Yeah.
So I have to say no because I can't be definitive about anything, but we have a couple audio clips of them saying what sounds like Sarah, which weirds me out.
Yeah. You know how many times I've heard that?
Out.
I've heard that
really?
so many times. Oh, yeah.
Are you serious? I never hear people say that, so I don't share that very often because that's one of those things that I'm just like, this is kind of, and I know a lot of those audio clips are weird anyways, but that's one of those things that I'm like, saying my name, you're kind of crossing the line there, you know?
Yeah. Mike from Siege of Hanabi would go out and call his dogs at night. And I've actually heard Kumbo and Bear, I don't know if you've heard them on the show. They talked a lot about this too, but Mike from Siege of Hanabi would go out and he'd call for his dogs every night. And one day he was gone and his brother and his dad were sitting out in the front yard. And they heard Mike calling for his dogs. Mike was at work. Mike wasn't even at home. And they heard him from the forest calling for his dogs. I've heard Ron Moorhead say that.
Oh, my goodness.
I've heard...
Did it sound like him?
He said it kind of sounded like him. They were thrown off at first because they thought it was him out in the woods. They're like, "What the world?" Yeah, they were like, "What in the world is he doing out in the woods calling for the dogs?" And Kumbo's talked about that a lot too. He said they would mimic him calling for his dogs. It sounded like a deaf person mimicking him, but he said they would mimic him calling for his dogs. So I was just curious if you've heard that. It's not crazy, to be honest with you. I've heard it more times, not just me, we've heard it more times than I care to.
And I should send you this clip now that we're talking about the creepy stuff, but one time I was left flowers on this stump. I had painted some sticks that I found one time that I thought looked like a juvenile had played with them. We found it by a print, and I painted some sticks and left them, and there were some flowers, they're actually weeds that were left in the middle of this stump. And a couple nights later, we hear one go, flowers, on audio, and it creeped me out. It could just be one of those, because the S kind of has like this, kind of like a whistle. You know when someone has like the missing bottom teeth, and their S's kind of go, that's what the S does. So it could just be one of those coincidence sounds that, you know, but it sure sounds like flowers. It kind of weirds me out. And the Sasquatch is right by the audio recorder when he does it.
Jesus. Poor John.
Yeah.
You imagine a Sasquatch bringing your wife flowers, and then you got to hear about how Sasquatch brings her flowers, and you never bring her flowers.
That's a real competition you don't want.
Yeah. The next day he goes and buys a huge lifted truck.
I'd love to do a show from there, just on site with you guys. And even if nothing happens,
that'd be awesome.
It'd be cool to be on site. Yeah.
Yeah, anytime you guys want to come out there, just try to pick a day that's not too windy.
I'd love to come out and pick your brain. I think you know more about these creatures than you realize, Sarah. I know you pass it off like.
Yeah.
I think you probably know more than you realize on.
Yeah.
I'd love to pick your brain on a lot of things, but I don't think you give yourself enough credit. I think you know a lot more than you realize.
I'd like to think I do. I'm such a huge animal lover, like such a huge animal lover that I think that I can tend to be more empathetic maybe towards them than a lot of people are, if that makes any sense. So maybe when it comes to their behavior, maybe I know a little tiny bit more than I give myself credit for. But I just said the other day to John, I said, there's two things I know for sure about Sasquatch. One, they exist. Two, you can't predict anything about them.
Before we let you go, and I hate to do this to you, but I hate to ask this question, but I'm going to ask it. It's a total generic question. But, sir, what is your thoughts as far as what do you think Bigfoot really is? I mean, or Bigfoot or Sasquatch? Because, I mean, you've had so many, it sounds like you've had several different encounters. You've heard audio sounds. It mimics you and your family. And it sounds like you're out in your backyard, and you've experienced the different personalities from talking to you, that the different personalities that Sasquatch has. Where do you stand? What do you think?
First, I don't think that's generic at all. That's like one of my favorite questions to ask people, because people have such different perceptions of what they do, you know. But anyways, I have not a clue. My views have changed so much on them. Man, the one thing that makes me go, maybe they're not just a great ape, is the personality thing. They're too diverse. They're just funny. Like, I feel like the Yip Yeller one, I think that he has a crush on me, and that sounds completely nuts.
It actually doesn't sound crazy at all. I've heard that a lot too, believe it or not.
I think it's hilarious, but I you know, dogs aren't like that. And it's things like that I'm just like, man, you're just a little bit too intelligent to just be this great ape. So I have not a clue. I kind of stopped trying to figure it out because I know that I'll never get anywhere. I'll just get frustrated with it. I like to hear other people's views on it. Do I think that they go in and out of dimensions? No, not a chance. The ones that we have here are living, they're breathing creatures. Whether they're a type of human or ape, I don't know. But do they cloak? No. They walk around, they beat on trees, they yell at us, throw rocks into creeks. They don't do anything that's spiritual. So that I completely rule out, at least for the ones here. I don't know what other people are, you know, seeing or whatever.
I think that was well said.
Yeah, I don't like to make fun of anyone. And, you know, I do believe in a spiritual world. I know that stuff exists, so I don't know if there's different things that people are seeing. I don't know. But as for this situation, they're a living, breathing creature. I mean, you look at that thermal footage, and he's staring at cows, you know, and it's picking up his body heat. If anyone can answer that question, I'll be the first to listen if they can say, you know, what they are for sure.
You made the comment to where you think maybe one of them had a crush on you, and you thought it was kind of funny. You might want to be a little more serious about that, just because from everybody that we've talked to, especially the male ones, they like women, and people tend to disappear. So,
good
you know,
point.
just be careful. Just be careful. That's all I'm saying. If you go out there, don't take it. You know, and I'm not telling you what to do or any of that, any of your business or any of that. But just be careful.
No, you know, I agree. And you know, I think that people are wrong when they say, oh, they're all sweet and they're our friends. You know, they would never harm anyone. No, that's not true. I do think that the family that lives here, I think that they're very sweet and very peaceful. And I think that they have I've got a few stories that kind of keep to myself, you know, that there's been a few times, like the cougar story, where I feel like they were, you know, watching out for us, or the decapitated coyote. But it's still a wild animal. I'll never get to hug it. I'll never get to, like, pet it or anything. You know, it's still a wild animal with wild tendencies. So I agree with you, and I think people need to be a little bit careful when they say that they're all friendly, because they're not.
Yeah, that's the thing I always caution people on, exactly what you said. They're wild creatures is the bottom line and have to be treated as such.
I know we're out of time, and I wanted to thank you for coming on the show, and I wanted to thank you for sharing everything you have going on there, and thank you for inviting us up. We're definitely going to take you up on the offer, but I just wanted to just take a second to thank you for coming on and sharing all your audio with us and sharing all your stories with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Much. I love your show.
I appreciate that. We appreciate that.
I'm totally honored to be on. And if you guys come out here, we'll do another live one. Hopefully get some good live audio, too.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, do it anytime. And activity is awesome right now. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to it, too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
cool.
Definitely be in touch with you, sir.
Okay, and I'll send you some of those audio clips that I was talking about tonight. I'll send some of those to you guys tomorrow.
Sounds good. And even if maybe me and Woody can make arrangements to come up, and then in September I'd like to get Will up there too.
Oh, perfect. You guys should come up before then, though.
Yeah, me and Woody will probably swing up that way.
Okay. Cool. Well, thanks again, guys.
Oh, thank you.
Sir.
All right, have a good one.
You too.
From everybody here at Sasquatch Chronicles, thank you for joining the show tonight. We'll see you again next week.